got a question, and I know it well. I had an eXp realty agent, actually two contrasting realty agents from the same town call me last week, and one, she called me, never talked to the lady before, and I get on the phone and immediately she starts trying to guess my company for sale. She's like, "Oh, is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one?" And I said, "Well, if one of those was my listing, you wouldn't know about it because there'd be confidentiality signed." And she goes, "Well, I know that there's real estate attached, so just go ahead and tell me the addresses for the real estate and I'll look it up myself." And I said, "Yeah, that's another thing that I don't give out until confidentiality is signed, because once I tell you the addresses, of course, you know what the companies are and you don't have confidentiality, and you might walk in and say, 'Hey,' to the customer service representative, 'I hear your company's for sale,' and then they quit the next day." And I had to explain the confidentiality thing, and actually she wasn't even 100%. She didn't tell me what brokerage she was, but so I went and figured it out after I got off the phone. But we've got this NDA that's for the broker confidentiality. Since
Broker confidentiality is really between you as the broker and the seller.
before
you
yeah, okay, that's what I've used it for. So, but can it be used between another broker and that seller if you have, I mean, obviously this person can't represent business, and I mean, I would think even signing that on eXp Realty end would be considered business brokering, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Part of it, I mean, you're basically what it's saying, what that agreement says is that the seller's releasing financial information and other information to you and to the company for purposes of evaluating whether or not you can represent the business for sale. Once once you've signed a representation agreement, then that company broker NDA is no longer valid. And you definitely wouldn't want to put that out there. I think, Erica, that a lot of what we do is educate people. As a business broker, probably 80% of your time is spent educating somebody, whether it's a seller, buyer, another broker, or another agent. And so, you just want to be kind and you want to be polite and just understand. It sounds like you were, and just let them know that, hey, look, business sales is confidential. There's nothing good that can happen when confidentiality is breached. So, I respect the fact that you'd like to know who the business is and or what the business is and the address and all that. But, it would be a breach of confidentiality and I just can't go there. And but it sounds like you did that. And so is this agent saying that they have a buyer, or what is their purpose for playing 21 questions with you?
She says she has a buyer, and they are in my specialty, and well, they were just looking for real estate, but now with recent law changes, it makes more sense for them to buy business. So, it's a referral, but and I actually, like I said, I had a contrasting call where someone from the same town actually called me and said, "Listen, my friend, she's got some businesses to sell. And then her parents also have a piece of commercial real estate to sell. Can we talk?" And we talked this morning, and I just led with confidentiality and explained what the difference is, and why business brokers are critical, because I know they made a decision at some point, which, I mean, I think in the beginning EXP commercial, it was like if there was a active business in the commercial real estate, then it was automatically a referral. And somehow that got changed to where EXP Realty agents are now allowed to list the commercial real estate and a lawyer lists the business. But from what I've seen in this practice, it's been detrimental because there can be, I mean, it's not just commercial real estate. And there was a pretty big listing that happened with here, where it got blasted all over the MLS that this building with this cap rate is for sale, right? And I mean, this is a lovely Montana business too. And but when regular people are looking at this, like, you're not out there seeing signs that say business for sale. You might see signs that say going out of business, and that's what people are used to seeing for signs. And so I think that when this happens and it's put out on the MLS and we're just selling the business, even though I'm going to rattle all the numbers off to you as soon as you call me or whatever, it's the business didn't sell. It didn't sell, and the listing expired. And this company was left exposed, and I'm sure they had nervous staff, if not quitting staff. And then the customers, they stop going because they go, oh, well, let's go to this other one. I heard they sold, or it's under new management, or they're going out of business, or, and so then the numbers start dropping, your sales start dropping.
Exactly.
And it really is not the best service. And you end up having to educate even that listing client, because maybe too, like today, this lady I talked to, she didn't know biz by sell. She'd only seen businesses like blasted on the MLS. And she's like, I really don't want that to happen. I've got 42 employees. And I'm like, yeah, that's why it's so important that it's confidential. But also these few listings that were allowed to do this here, they listed it on the MLS, and then the homes.com pulled in their info. And like, when you Google EXP commercial Montana, it comes up as on like the third one down. I guess it merges over to LoopNet, and it shows these EXP Realty brokers listed as the EXP commercial brokers here. And it's and it's on the first page of your Google search, and it is very confusing, especially since our website changed where you can't search by state, because there's only a few of us here, and so we work the whole state. It's actually become pretty hard to, like, even for another EXP Realty agent to look up and see who they could refer to here. So it's kind of what I've been experiencing in the last week.
Yeah, and I would say that, well, aren't you a member of that agent, what do they call it? That agent council? Isn't there like an agent council that provides feedback and all that to corporate?
I am not a member,
Okay.
but yeah, this is probably something that we should point out to corporate, that because the agents didn't even know they were listed as the EXP commercial agents on LoopNet at all, so
well, I do know that John, why is his last name not coming to me? Sean Murphy and
John Letourneau.
John Letourneau, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know that they've been looking, very much at separation in terms of like EXP Realty agents using EXP Commercial's logo on their flyers and things like that. And they've been, basically saying, yeah, I mean, it's two different companies. So So I would say that if that's what's going on and that's actually being pulled into LoopNet or pulled into other systems, then first of all, Homes.com and LoopNet are both owned by CoStar. So since EXP has that relationship with CoStar, and by the way, BizBuySell is also and BizQuest are also owned by CoStar. So if that's something that needs to be cleaned up, if you can provide screenshots or the right information to somebody at corporate, they can probably get it over to CoStar and get it cleaned up because CoStar controls all of those sites.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, one of my rules for my kids was no telling, and I don't like to do it myself. But it's confusing and misleading, and I really just I think there's still a lot of education, cross education to do here about why. I mean, this lady this morning felt so relieved when I explained to her that number one is confidentiality, and this is how
Yeah.
we operate, and we won't even say that town because it's such a small town. We'll say the county. And she was like, oh, what a relief,
Yeah.
because she didn't even know. I mean, business brokers, there's not a whole lot of us. So a lot of people have not ever met a business broker and just don't understand what we do.
Yeah. Well, and I would say, I would not look at it as telling type of thing. I would look at it as cleanup, right? Because you don't know how
Yeah, you're right.
if Net pulled that information from homes.com because CoStar controls all of that, then the agents involved may have had nothing to do with it. And even though they were rightly on, if they're residential agents, are rightly on homes.com. Now, if LoopNet is pulling agents over from homes.com for whatever reason, then that's something that maybe needs to be changed. And then it's just a
Yeah.
matter of informing CoStar that, hey, look at, there's some cleanup that you guys need to do on your own sites. So,
Yeah, it
you
seems
know,
like it's some cleanup for EXP too, because my
yeah,
broker did talk to her about it, and she's like, well, this is because it's pulling over commercial real estate that they have listed that also has a business. And I said, herein lies the problem. This business doesn't have any confidentiality,
yeah.
and it's now unclear. So,
Well, it
yeah,
is a problem. I had this conversation with somebody last week as well because there's a building, has a business and all that, and is a residential agent, and she wants to sell the property, and I said, okay, well, how how are you going to market the property without breaching the confidentiality that the business is for sale? And
exactly.
I said, because typically when we're selling a business and the property is also available, we indicate that. Um, but we still don't provide an address. We don't provide pictures of the property, maybe interior shots that,
That's right.
would be non-identifying. So yeah, it is a conversation, it's education, and it'll be interesting because, we're still I've got a meeting later this week with this agent and with the seller, and we're going to have the conversation. It's like, okay, well, if on the residential side, they're planning on marketing your building through whatever the MLS and whatever else that they use, then understand that that is going to be, your address is going to be out there. It's public. It'll be out available to pretty much the entire public, plus every residential real estate in the country. And so the odds are very, very high. The probability is very, very high that your employees are going to know that the business is for sale within 3 to 5 days tops.
So true.
I mean, it just is, right? Now, there's no guarantee that as we're marketing a business and we have people signing the NDAs and all of that, we're having them sign NDAs. That doesn't necessarily mean they honor them. We can't guarantee that, but we do our best to try. And we are marketing the business in a confidential manner. We're saying the real estate's available. Maybe we might even have a real estate OM um, attached to the back end of the SIM. So we have all the business information and then we have the real estate information. We've got that all packaged together, but they're only provided that after they've signed an NDA. So, you know, I am very unclear and don't think it's possible to have a residential person list a commercial property while a business broker is trying to sell it confidentially and have anything good come of that. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Unless it's a situation where the building has so much more value than the business that it makes that, the business cannot support market rent under the sale of the property, and somebody coming in, you may have a buyer that's interested in the building only and really couldn't care less about the business. And I say that because I remember a few years back, I was selling a retail music store, and they owned the building. And the music store, they sold musical instruments, guitars, drum sets, things like that. And it was worth maybe 200,000, but the building was worth $1.2 million. And you're not going to turn down $1.2 million over a $200,000 sale. And the other part of that, though, was that the only reason the business was worth 200,000 was because it had about, it had inventory that was maybe 170,000 of inventory. So the business value itself from a goodwill standpoint had very little value. And we did find a buyer that wanted the building and really couldn't care less about the business. And so the sellers in that case had said, look, we understand the business doesn't cash flow well enough to support the acquisition of the building. And we want you to go ahead and market the business, indicate the building is available, but also go ahead and market the building separately. And we talked to them about confidentiality and all that.
Yeah,
And so we were able to find a buyer for the building. They liquidated their inventory. They sold all their inventory. They probably made more or just as much as, we would have been able to get them from their inventory. Or close to it. And then it was a clean transaction. And we didn't actually, we had tried to sell the business didn't sell, they liquidated the inventory. The building sold and it closed. So
excuse me, Tanya, in that case, how do you market the building, please?
Well, in that case, I actually didn't. I had brought in a commercial expert to handle that side for me because at the time I didn't have access to CoStar. I could have gone out on LoopNet and all that, but there was a friend of mine who was a commercial real estate expert, and he was in the local area. And I just said, "Hey, partner with me on this, and this is what I need." And so he put that together, and yeah, so we both represented the seller on the deal. It was fine.
So you list the commercial with the address, because that happened to me right now.
He did.
Oh,
Yeah, he did, only because we had had the conversation with the sellers. We had explained to them, the options, and we had been trying to sell the business with the building for several months.
Yes.
But because the cash flow wasn't going to be sufficient, we didn't have any buyers there. It was like, okay, well, we can pivot and we can try and sell the building, knowing that it has far more value anyways, but understand that, when it comes to selling the commercial real estate, the systems we're going to put it in are going to list the address. So you're not going to have confidentiality at that point. And the seller said, yes, that's what we want to do.
Oh, thank you.
So
how do you convince the seller doing that? How do you convince?
It wasn't a matter of convincing them. They just wanted to retire. They were done with the business. The business wasn't generating a lot of cash flow for them, and they didn't want to go into the store every day. And they just said, yeah, if you can sell the building, then let's just sell the building and we'll liquidate the inventory. So it was their decision. We just needed to educate them on the implications, right?
Yes.
because they don't know. They don't know.
Mm.
If you just say we're going to market the building separately, but you don't talk about confidentiality, they don't know that marketing the building separately means the address is going to be out there. Everybody's going to know this building is for sale, right?
Mhm.
So you have to tell them the details and let them make the decision.
Oh, let them make. Yeah, that's happened to me right now. The seller said, no, I want to keep it confidential. And I told him, no, if you want it confidential, we cannot list it because we have to export the address. So I was stuck because like you said, the cash flow cannot, support the commercial, the bank deny, the SBA loan deny.
Mm. Yeah. I
So
mean, the other thing you can do on that, if the seller is willing, is you can sell the business and tell the seller that you need to have set up a long-term lease or set up a lease, right, for the buyer of the business, and then turn around and sell the building afterwards, either to that buyer or to somebody else. But, sometimes the building or sometimes the business is just not going to support market rent.
yeah, no.
And that was an issue too with this music store is when they weren't paying rent to
No.
themselves, and so when we added rent in there, the cash flow was it just wasn't it wasn't there.
That's
So
true. Yeah.